signal. Give me signal. Give me signal.
Signal.
Good, good, good. Recording on OBS starting now. We're going to start recording on the mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Hello, recovery family, and welcome back to the Unashamed Recovery podcast. I am your host, Josh.
And I'm your co-host, Drew.
We're missing Palmer today. Palmer is out. He's at work. But nonetheless, we're still here. We're going to be bringing a new episode. This is episode number 65, Lost and Now Found.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Lost and Now Found.
Who's our guest today, Josh?
Today, we are joined by Miss Amy. Amy, thank you for joining us on the Unashamed Recovery podcast. Thank you for coming this way and sharing your story with us today. We talked last night, and she gave me an excellent episode verse for today, Drew. 1 John 2:27. 1 John 2:27. So if everybody out there has got your Bibles or your Bible app, you can go ahead and open that up, thumb to it. We'll be making reference to that later. 1 John 2:27. I'll go ahead and I'll read through it just for a moment, just to give us a clue to what we're going to be talking about today. It goes something like this. As for you, the anointing you received from him remains in you, and you don't need anyone to teach you. Instead, his anointing teaches you about all things and is true and is not a lie. Just as it has taught you, remain in him. So that kind of gives us a good little setup for what we're going to be talking about today with Amy. Amy is here to share her story with us, and we're going to go ahead and jump into that. Amy, I'm going to throw one on you.
Okay.
The out of the blue question. Here it comes.
Here it comes. Looking at your story,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to be looking at the first of your story, that chapter 1. What would you call chapter 1 of your story? Like when we look at it, where we would start, what would that starting point be called, if you could name it something?
That's difficult.
Yes.
That's
I dropped
truly
one.
difficult.
Every time.
Every
we get
time.
some
Truly
every
different.
time.
Every time.
I would say complete blindness. That's all I can
Ooh.
Helen Keller.
I will tell you. I'm just going to go ahead and drop. We've been doing this for 5 years,
say. Mm-hmm.
and I have not heard that one yet. Usually you'll hear some that repeat. I've not heard that one yet, Drew.
Complete blindness.
I like that.
Yeah.
Complete blindness. So go ahead and take us into that, Amy. Tell us about where does your story start? Where are you at in that complete blindness?
Okay. Well, I'll take you to as far back as I can remember.
Okay.
I do remember.
I was born.
That was it. I was born. And I'm originally from Texas, Dallas, Texas.
Woo!
Yeah,
Tejas.
absolutely. Me, my mother, and my sister were all born there at Parkland Memorial. The only one, yes.
there.
Yep, it's great. It's big. She moved us here to Mississippi, Harrisville, Mississippi. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Harrisville.
Never heard of that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Been here all my life.
Yeah, there's not much there. Maybe a gas station.
The one stop sign.
Sunflower,
town.
something like that. But yeah, I grew up on a I don't remember the name of the road. It's just an old country gravel road down there. Anyhow, I grew up in an abusive home. My mother left my father when I was 2. My sister was 4. And she moved us here to Mississippi, where she met my brother's father. And so we grew up with him. I grew up with him as my father,
Gotcha.
But he was a severe alcoholic. He was, mentally, physically, verbally, everything, abusive. So that's, I kind of lived in a very confined, atmosphere because of the abuse that I lived in. We didn't go out and no one came in.
Right.
So I was very,
Very isolated.
yes. I knew the extent of my mother, my brother, my sister, and that was it. It was me. Well, my stepdad, and then his daughter from his first marriage. She lived with us. So it was us. My mother worked as a server at a restaurant for the man that she ended up with later. That's another chapter.
Okay.
So
That may be for another episode,
Right?
too, huh?
it's lengthy, but very interesting. So she was gone basically day and night. I stayed there, took care of my brother and sister, just kind of oversaw, made sure that my brother and sister kind of doing what they were supposed to do. The house was tidied up, etc. Like I said, I didn't really know much of anything.
But had to grow up at an early age, though, at the same
Oh, very
time.
much so.
Yeah.
Very
You
much
were
so.
forced into that, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I was, 10 years old, whatever, take care of the house, my brother and sister, kind of make sure they were good, yeah.
And, and with that, you really got to look at it. Didn't get to enjoy being a kid.
No.
That's...
I don't even know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Yeah. That's
Childhood, what is that?
Yeah.
like, well,
What did they do?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of those topics that you don't want to talk about with people who grew up, and that's privilege of people getting to grow up and have and experience a childhood,
Right.
compared to somebody that is forced to
Grow up
Yeah,
at a
forced
really
to-
young age
yeah.
and take care of other people and be the caretaker of the house. Yeah, that's
most
difficult in itself.
definitely. Yeah, man, that's
I mean, I have a hard time with it as an adult. So.
If you have a toy, enjoy it.
Yeah,
If you have a hobby, enjoy it. I don't know. Truth be known, actually, even today, my hobby is
Taking care of other people.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I do. That's what I know. That's what I love.
how about that?
Very interesting.
Yeah. So, and you said you were 10 when you was having to take that role and step into that.
That's as far back as I can remember. I'm sure I was doing it before that, but I remember from about 10 up.
My daughter's about to turn 10, and I can't even begin to think, putting her in that. But
I got 2 10-year-old boys, and there ain't no way the house would burn down. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility to handle
So,
at that age. So.
I'm going to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What was school like?
I don't know.
And the reason I ask that is the majority of the people that we have come in and talk about this and share their story, there's one common factor with all of them, is they talk about how they were able to just excel at school when everything else was falling apart in their life. Like, they grew up in this broken family, they grew up in this abuse, they grew up in addiction, they grew up in that, but they were able to still excel at school
because they could bury themselves into the work.
Yeah, and they could kind of basically
She's shaking her
wear
head.
that as
So
a mask.
What's
Yeah.
the head shake
I'm
for?
like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
So I imagine school was still pretty tough then.
I don't know. I don't remember.
I can understand that.
No, I really don't.
sometimes I like to forget school too. I hated school. I had horrible memories.
Well, the thing is, when you experience traumatic experience after traumatic experience, your brain at some point, like, literally puts them in a lockbox and stores it there, for the end of time until you can actually get that treasure buried, the buried quote-unquote treasure, or whatever you want to call it, out of there.
And I know
and
I'm jumping
deal with it. So
I'm jumping way ahead here, but that's one thing I do like about Celebrate Recovery, is how Celebrate Recovery in the step work will take you and help you to unlock that.
yeah.
So anyway, we got off topic. Let's get back on topic. So what is next in your story, Amy? Where do we go from you having to grow up and to miss childhood and to take on this responsibility as a young kid? What is next in that story?
Going deeper into that.
Well, come on with it.
Okay, so my mother finally left my brother's father. I guess I was between 12 or 14. I can't remember. But it was one of the two. And she moved in with the man that she was working for that owned the restaurant. And that didn't, right off, I was just like, no. Mm-mm. Nope. I don't like it.
Just didn't sit well, huh?
Nope. I was not interested in anything that he had. I went from holes in the floor to plenty of money, you know?
Right.
And I just wasn't interested at all. So I wanted out, you know, almost instantly. And, well, they made the comment, well, the way you're getting out of the house is if you get pregnant. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So I got pregnant.
And what age was this?
16.
16.
My goodness. What a comment.
Yeah.
Like, my goodness.
So, I got pregnant, and then I remember being upstairs and taking. I don't even know how I got a pregnancy test. I haven't got my hands on one or how I bought it or anything, but I had one, and it came back positive. I put it in the phone book. Y'all remember phone books?
I do remember phone book.
I put it in the phone book, and I carried it back downstairs. You know, said on it. You know, I'm gonna let you find it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they did, and not a word was spoken to me. I was just waiting. You know,
Yeah.
no one came upstairs. Not a word spoken to me. I got up, went to school the next day. No, nothing. Got up next day, went to school. Nothing. Not hello. Not goodbye. Not anything. And you know, I wondered, you know, how I had the intelligence to pick up the phone and make some calls in this meantime. You know, I know now, but I didn't know then. So I made a couple calls, you know, abortion clinics, adoption agencies, and so forth. Got my little answers, you know. Sure enough, 3 days later, my mom comes busting in the door. She says, okay, you have 3 options. So what's that? She said, marriage, abortion, or adoption. I said, none of the above. My body, my right. You can't make me do either. She said, well, you're doing something because you're getting out. I said, okay. I called my son's father that I just left, and I said, we're getting married. He answered the phone, hello. I said, we're getting married. He said, okay. So, yep. Within 3 days, I was moved out.
Well, my goodness.
The rebellion is real with this one.
But you were wanting out of that situation.
Absolutely.
And they tell you this is your way out.
And she took it.
Then there it was.
Yep.
So how did that make you feel when all that was said and done and you were on your way out? Was there a feeling of relief? Was there a feeling of regret? How did that make you feel?
Well, the only thing that I knew is that I wanted what my family didn't have to offer, you know, which had nothing to do with money or anything else. You know, I wanted a family. I wanted to, I don't know how to, I mean, you know what a family is, you know? I mean, I just wanted a family and to, you know, live life and enjoy everything that the Lord had given us. I didn't even know the Lord then. Well, I wasn't taught anything about the Lord.
Right.
Got you.
And, you know, that was definitely not a subject or, you know, a place that I went or anything like that. But at first, of course, I was relieved. It was instant relief because I did not want anything to do with him or there or anything that he had.
Right.
You know, so that was a relief. But when they dropped me off 4 hours away from home, you know, at 16 with a baby, and they had left, I saw the taillights. I watched until the taillights left, and I was like, oh, they'll be back. No. No. It was sink or swim.
So you said 4 hours away. So were you still in Mississippi?
Yeah, on the coast. They took my son's father was from the coast, so they took me and dropped us off. They paid for my of course they had me get married. Because that legally emancipated me.
Right.
I would not they would not legally be responsible for me anymore.
Right.
So I learned these things years later.
Yeah.
I was very, very blind.
There we go. We're full circle.
Blind and naive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There we go.
Lost.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I imagine there has to be a feeling of abandonment and rejection that start to set in at this point too, though. I mean, your mom's not listening to you. Whenever you're saying, I don't like the circumstances. I don't want to go into these circumstances. I understand, like you're wanting to get out of your circumstance, but you're harming me in the same thing. So therefore, you're not listened to. That automatically sets in rejection. And
you'll find this quite odd, probably, but it's more like I always wondered what was wrong with everyone. What is wrong with y'all?
Right.
So you were thinking you were the only sane one.
Well, not really that I was saying. I don't have the words for that.
What is wrong with y'all?
What is
Right.
wrong with y'all? I mean, what are y'all doing?
New show title. Put it on a T-shirt. What's wrong with y'all?
Right?
Right.
What are you thinking? What are you doing? I mean, I don't know. I just never understood.
Right.
That's all.
I mean, I have been there a time or two. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, I mean, I can see,
Yeah.
So you're down there. You've watched the taillights leave you.
Mm-hmm.
You are there 4 hours away. You're with your new husband. So.
Sorry.
So.
Yep.
The realization is
Yes.
starting to set in again.
Yeah. So.
Dang, he was my new husband.
Yeah, it was.
I never thought about it like that. It's just somebody else to get on my nerves.
It's like, okay.
Yeah. So it was sink or swim time, and
Mhm.
you're still sitting here. So I'm assuming you swam.
Of course.
Yeah. Had no choice.
That's right.
So what was life like for this teenage girl 4 hours away from home with this man with this boy that she didn't know with a baby? What was life like?
Well, let's say that didn't last long. We say the car that my parents gave me, he took to work. And I remember him one morning, he was fixing to leave and take my car and go to work. I stayed there by myself, town or nobody I knew, story of my life. And he comes, gives me a kiss on the cheek, and he leaves for work, and I saw him 3 days later. About this time, I don't remember anything but this. I don't remember. I was there from, I guess I was about somewhere between 2 and 3 months pregnant. Well, I was about 8 at this time. I don't remember the whole time there. The only part I remember is this day. And he came in, and 3 days later, I was hungry. I remember being very, very hungry. There was nothing in the refrigerator, and there was a whole chicken in the freezer. And I kept going to the freezer to open that freezer to look at that chicken. I thought maybe it would do something.
It's gonna cook it. It's
You're
gonna
gonna
cook itself. in
You're
here.
going. Something's gonna happen to this chicken. I want it. I remember that. I did not know how to cut up a chicken at that time, and that was all there was to eat. And but anyway, I remember that. And he came in about 3 days later, and couldn't walk and stuff, him and his brother. And anyway, he was not very kind or whatever. Anyway, I don't remember anything after that. Next thing I know is I'm back in here, Richland, and I came back and rented a room for $75 a week. I left somehow. At some point I left. I don't remember. And I came back and rented a room for $75 a week from my friend's uncle.
And so you're back up here in familiar territory. You traded one abusive place for another. You've left that, and you're once again on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Abandoned and dejected one more time.
Mm-hmm. My entire life.
And I'm imagining that you're probably feeling some type of familiarity in the being alone and the isolation. You probably, like, I remember whenever I was in my relapse, I found comfort in my isolation. Was that something that you were probably going through during that time? Was this comfort in it of being alone?
Yep.
Well, of course.
And
and that false sense of independence, and then you just start to feel like I don't need anybody else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing is I have trust issues, or control issues. I do better when I'm alone because I ain't got to worry about nobody else messing it up. I can depend on myself. Can't depend on nobody else.
Right.
You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but like when you struggle with control, other people just get in the way. Other people just slow me down.
Well,
When it's just me, I got me.
Well, I mean, when you isolate like that, you can just control the environment that you're in. You can choose who you let in or out.
Yeah.
You know, all that kind of stuff. So
I don't know what y'all talking about.
she said, she said I had no control over
I
this.
I don't know what y'all talking about. I don't know.
Just didn't want to be around people.
I didn't know anything any different.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know anything any different.
So you're back up here in Ridgeland.
Mm-hmm.
So how far of a time frame was that from whenever you had gotten dropped off on the coast and saw the taillights? Like how far, what kind of time period are we looking at from there? Have you had the baby? Or
No.
Okay. All right. So what's next? Go get the popcorn ready. I can feel something's coming.
So after I came back and I rented the room there, I knew that this whole time that I spent with him, like my baby didn't even have a bottle, you know, and I knew it was going to be really tough for he and I. And if I do not want to tear up, I knew it was going to be tough. Hang on a second, because I'm not going to do that. Get a drink of water. So, but whatever it entailed, you know, I'd be there. So, we stayed there. My son was born, and I remember, this is so terrible, but it's facts. I remember, like I said, I was staying with my friend's uncle. I rented a room from him. And I remember looking and watching, thinking to myself, you know, because, you know, I always looked for that family as well, you know, and thinking, well, he's older. I'm going to be real raw with y'all. I'm going to be real, you know. It's like he's older. He's more stable. He seems like, you know, a family man, I guess you'd say. Mind you, I'm just a kid.
Yeah.
And so I don't really end up knowing how we started talking, but we did. He was much older than me. My son was born, and when my son was born, he was there at the hospital room with me when my son was born. And that's partially how my son got his middle name. I knew his first name, but then I looked around, I was like, what the
Yeah.
you know, and then his middle name came through my mind, so my son got his middle name. Anyway, my son was born. my son's father got the call or whatever course it was and his kid after I left anymore. So it was just me and my son. I really still didn't. I did the only thing I knew how to do. I cooked, I cleaned, I took care of my son, I took care of him, did what I
So
know.
you figured out how to cook that whole chicken?
I sure did. I'm cooking mean chicken today, too. Fried chicken.
So you became good at, once again, staying in your own bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And becoming a
Excellent.
caretaker.
Yeah, and embracing that caretaker that you was already talking about. And you had already been doing that since a kid.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
Right.
So, man. So what did life bring you next?
Well, let's see.
So how much older was this older guy?
19 years older than me.
Yeah. I mean, you've been a 16-year-old at that point, too.
Yep.
Whew.
Yeah.
35.
So there goes a little manipulation
Mm-hmm.
as well. So, I mean, you
That's the story of my life.
yeah. I mean, that's just what it seems like. It's been manipulation, abandonment. Then, it's just all these things, these different traumas that are starting to package themselves into,
Yeah.
man, into this
I'm
story.
still trying to figure out what's wrong with everybody.
It's not me.
What's wrong with y'all? You know?
That should have been the show title. What's wrong with y'all?
Yeah.
And you got that right.
Just ride it
No.
out. What's wrong with y'all? But yeah, I mean, I can imagine that's so tough to deal with, especially at the age of 16 when you're still trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to find your identity in anything, in anybody at that point. So, I mean,
Ooh.
you're trying to find it in a marriage that's not really a marriage. It's more
Right.
of an escape.
Set up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a circumstantial escape, but it's also something that you're not really wanting to do, but it gets you out of where you don't want to be at. So, I mean, it's just you're having to hop into these different roles that you're uncomfortable with because it's not you at all,
Right.
And so having to deal with manipulation on top of that from somebody that's twice or three times your age, I mean, that's difficult.
Were we not just talking about identity on the way over
Yep,
here?
we absolutely were. Matter of fact, our sermon series at church is identity theft. Do-do. Yeah.
That's a big one.
Whenever
Sounds like you've been going through a lot of identity robbery
yeah.
here lately.
Oh, yeah.
Well, lately. I mean, at that
My
time.
entire life
Yeah.
till lately.
Till lately. That's kind of
That's
what
why
I
it's
meant.
lost now found.
I went through a stage where I had my identity wrapped up and trying to be like Nickelback.
We're not going to talk about your Nickelback hairstyle. It was more in
Danny gave me a look like, I don't know if you saw it or not. He gave me a look at the corner of his eye like, this guy.
Danny, if you saw the pictures, you would throw up.
Well, that's all.
I'm sorry,
That's
Josh.
another episode for another time. Anyway. So anyway, with you taking on that caretaker role again, what did that do for you as mentally speaking? Like, were you in a bad place during that time, or was that just you in survival mode?
I was
Or
confused.
I get it.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Very, very serious. It was very fulfilling for me. I never hated doing it. That's all I ever wanted to do. It was very confusing as to why other people weren't doing it.
Right.
What's wrong with y'all?
What's wrong with y'all?
I'm learning life on the go. You can do it too.
Yeah. What is wrong with y'all? Yeah. Seriously.
I mean, but you're having to learn life with a child with your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally sink or swim. I mean,
Yeah.
it's either I can do this or I'm not going to do this and I'm going to lose everything that I got right now.
Well, I mean, wasn't no one else going to come rescue you?
Right.
Well, I mean, she basically learned that from seeing them taillights.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got that
Yeah.
right.
I was like, okay, well, they're not coming back.
No, they're not coming back. Not
Yeah,
coming.
So I mean, now we're starting to see a pattern, in the story, to where it's, people buy in for a second and then they abandon or disappear, with no explanation. It's just here and gone, So how did that play into your mindset? I mean, it's going forward. Did that tear you down? I mean, did it just make you drive harder? Was it more motivation at that point, or is it just?
It was just already in me.
Yeah.
So take us on into your story and tell us about what life threw at you after that.
Oh, goodness.
Where to start, huh?
Yeah. It didn't get better.
Woo! That's an understatement.
Yeah, it didn't get better.
I love it. It didn't get no better.
Right.
It got worse. It definitely got worse.
I can feel that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, where was that? Where was I? What's next? Okay, of course, so I left him when I was. That was so strange. But I said I would be honest, tell you, I was just sitting there one day, in the car, and turned, and this is terrible. I just turned and looked at him, and I was just like, I'm going to grow old with someone. Someone will grow old on me.
Oh, Lord have mercy. But it's a true statement. I mean.
I'm like, so I left. And I don't know I don't remember, what I did, or I don't, let me think. I was by myself for a while. Me and my son, I got a place, and I was by myself with my son for a while, and then, I met another man. And this man was actually the only person that I didn't really care too much for men, not meaning it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I just was not a chaser of, or I don't know. I wasn't a chaser of anyone or anything. Does that make sense?
Right.
But I spoke to him and called, and when I hung out with him, got to know them, I got to do things with them that I'd never gotten to do before. I knew that. Like, get on a boat. Y'all are going to think I'm weird, but it's so true. I didn't do anything. Get on
I mean, not really, because, you didn't have a childhood.
No,
I mean,
didn't.
if you were confined because of the abuse, obviously that was to keep the abuse to a minimum. And nobody, that didn't need to get out and spread out into the community, so they wanted to keep that condensed, which is wrong in so many ways. Mm-hmm. But, you didn't have a childhood. You were always having to take care of somebody else. And then finally, now you're getting to see the world.
Yeah.
Just
some of it.
Yeah,
piece.
little snippets.
Yeah, a little bit.
A boat.
Yeah, there's a boat and a race car. And it was fun,
I still am not that. Don't give me see no boat. Like,
I love the boat and I love the water, And and then I saw how he was with his child, and that, allowed me to respect him because of that.
He showed you what you wanted.
Well, with his son.
Family. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You got a picture of it.
Yeah, that'd be great. My son, his son. Yeah, great.
yeah.
We get along and we can do things together. And that's what it was all about for me. It's like being able to do something with someone.
Right.
We went camping. We went to.
She couldn't do that with an old man.
No.
Nah. So now
he
she's
was older than me too, but not that much older.
So now she's getting to do life at this point. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of living without the stress of, the back end of, is this going to be one of those things that just dissipate out of nowhere? That's probably the exciting part of it, was the fact that you're actually getting to do life with someone.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to.
That's all I've wanted all my life.
Yeah. That's the family aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
And I always knew that this person had to be at least 10 years. At least 10 years older than me. At least 10 years. Well, he was about that. 10 years. 10, 11 years, something like that. 12 years, something like that.
So let me ask, was your mom's boss older than her
Yes.
by 10 years?
I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm not being funny.
I
It's
know.
it's
No.
a generational hand down.
Oh, yeah.
That,
definitely.
that's why I asked. Because, I mean,
know.
I moved out
I
when
just-
she did. I got married when she did. The first time I had kids when she did. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, all that's generational.
Yeah.
Here's the chain breaker.
hmm
It was just I was laughing because I knew where you were going with it.
Yeah.
It was I was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that was why I
Leading
was
questions,
laughing.
objections, objection. Leading the witness.
So
Right.
so you got this guy who's kind of fitting the mold. He's 10 years. That's exactly what you was wanting. You're doing, seeing and experiencing life. Everything's going good. It's kind of meeting those expectations. What was something that you got to do during that time that still is a highlight of that you can think back and like that was a good time?
What do you think?
Riding the boat, Josh.
Must have been a good boat.
Taking care of them, taking care of the house, taking care of the yard. You know, I worked too,
Yeah.
but then I also took care of the house and, cooking and all that stuff. It was all, to me, it was always all about not what you could give someone, but the time that you spent with them.
Right.
You know, that was, that's what it was always about for me. But that's why I was always like, what's wrong with y'all? Because no one else cared about that.
Yeah.
Everybody else was just, let me go grab you something off the shelf or give you this or give you that. You'll be fine.
Right.
You know?
Instead of the quality of time.
Right. No, I'm not fine. And that's not fun.
Well, I think it's just, I think people are so caught up in this because it's a easy fix. You know, I catch myself late at night, tired, and my daughter's sitting there and she's cranky or fussy. Like, here, watch your tablet,
Right.
and it's a quick fix. But is it a quick fix?
No.
because
No.
it's
No,
not.
it's more
It's
detrimental.
deadly.
Yeah, and or it's people would rather do that than they would to put in that quality time. Like I remember when I was a kid, one of the most memorable moments of my life was out there on one of our church camping trips with me and my dad,
Right.
camping at the reservoir. Like some of my most memorable moments come from those times. That ain't from giving them a tablet or going and buying something off a shelf. That's quality time that me and him spent out there in that crappy tent on that hard ground.
That's right.
But it's still highlight moments in my life. I still
Yeah.
remember those. That's been over 30 years ago. Still remember it.
That will always be that to this day, because that's the only time I've ever somewhat experienced it, even though it wasn't what was meant for me, then. It was a path that I had to take,
We all had to take them.
Yep. So, but it's still to this day because that's the only time that I ever had that.
So, living the dream at that point. So, when did the nightmare come?
Mm.
Gotta hydrate for that one.
Well, when I say nightmare, I mean, obviously, there's that the pink cloud moment, and then that kind of burst, and then so the realization of everything kind of hits again, and that's what sends us down the road of addiction is the fact
Or
that
just down the
that's-
road to.
Right when not long ago, that's when it happened.
when the nightmare starts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Will take us into that.
Oh boy. Well, I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, but I knew something was wrong with him. Let's just even skip that part. When it ended between he and I thought my world was over. That was it. I never had that.
Right.
That I'd always wanted. Okay, so I was with my brother's friend's mother, and they took me somewhere, and to to a house I'd never been nowhere like that. I didn't know where they're going, what they were doing, and they went inside and came out, and of course, I'm in a very, very bad place.
I was about to ask, how were you feeling mentally at this point?
I was no good.
Yeah.
No good. My world was shattered to me.
Yeah.
My entire life I'd waited for something like that. Got a piece of it, gone.
Right.
Just
have the rug ripped
which
out
meant
from under you.
more to me, like I said, than anything in the world. To this day, remains the same. All right, so they came out, and then she opened her hand. She said, "Hey, you want to try this?" I'm like, "What is that?" And she told me, and my exact words, to this day, I can tell you, I said, "Anything has got to make me feel better than what I feel right now." And I tried it, and when I tried it, I was so high that I could not think or feel anything else. Like, that instantly taught me, well, if you don't want to think or feel anything, all
You
you
go.
gotta do
Here's the numbing cream.
is come see me, you know?
Right.
Yep,
So what did she have for you? What was in her hand?
crack cocaine.
Mm.
So at that point in your life, had ever done anything else, or was this your first introduction?
No, it was my first introduction to anything like talking about. My son's father had smoked weed. I did that. I did it just a time or two or something. I am very in tuned with things. I always have been pretty much.
Mhm.
But for the most part, well, what I'm allowed to be in tune with. But anyway, when I would smoke marijuana, then it would make me more. So I didn't want that.
Right.
I do not want that. So
Imagine
not-
just going straight off. That's what you're introduced to, like, and that go off the deep end.
Oh, to just jump?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
That was a cliff jump.
whew.
I did, taken an ecstasy pill before or something, or
Just a little
yeah,
little buffet drugs is what I want
Yeah.
to call them here and there.
nothing, and
Yeah.
nothing ever did not, it was nothing to me or for me or whatever. But that was a wrap,
Just-
and it wasn't because I hated it.
Right.
I hated it. I did not understand. I hated it.
What's wrong with y'all?
What is wrong with y'all? What is this? And why am I here?
What's wrong with y'all? Why y'all give me this?
Yes.
I swear we're gonna change this. This is gonna be episode 65. What's wrong with y'all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said we might come up with it. But I'm serious. But I didn't. It's not something I did all the time.
Right.
And mine it didn't look like it did for everyone else with me. But it seemed like, it was a binge like every 2 weeks or something, like twice a month or something like. And I never would go around nobody, and I never did not want anyone around me. I'd stay in a car by myself the whole time. And I used to cry and bang on the steering wheel and be like, I don't belong here. What's going on?
Yeah.
Right.
I never understood why I was there.
The gateway drug itself, I've always said it, is it's not weed, it's not nicotine, it's not alcohol, it's trauma. That is the gateway. That is the thing that drives us most of the time into making choices where we're no longer able to make choices. It puts us in a situation to where a substance will make the choice for us. People will make the choice for us. Trauma starts making the choice for you. And that's kind of what happened in your situation. It sounds like it's the fact that the trauma was so deep finally, and that you ended up doing what you could to numb yourself from it.
Absolutely, because I never could stand it.
Yeah.
I never could stand it. It made me sick. Ugh.
Right. But that was the medicine that you had.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the
That's
only
all
thing
I
that you
had.
could use to self-medicate. Because, I mean, obviously, it sounds like it put you right in the spot where you wanted to be, but didn't want to feel the way that you were feeling.
Right.
Because you were still isolated. It put you away from everybody else. It put you in a place to where you felt like you could deal with whatever you were dealing
with my emotions, my feelings.
Exactly. But then you don't realize how out of control it's becoming.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So was that the only thing you had done, or did you progress to something more than that? That was it?
That was it.
So how long did this road last, though?
12 years.
12 years. Whew.
12 years.
So to get
My
to the
goodness.
point to where it was to where you started trying to manipulate and, what's the word that I'm looking for? By any means necessary, I guess, to get this medicine, quote unquote.
Well, for a lot, most part, I still worked.
Right.
I still took care of my household and anybody else that needed anything, and because I was so empty inside, when it's all said and done, okay, everything's paid, y'all have everything you need, I'm out.
Right.
Now I got to go do me, which is make me feel better, and mainly, supported that the whole time, but there were, I don't really remember the point. It was a few years later. I don't remember really the point where it came in to where I guess I did like I would, like stores or I don't really.
You never got to the point where we were stealing or doing
Not
anything like that.
Not now. I would flip stuff from the store.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
People, no. Store, yeah.
Right. Like, what the craziest part is you justified it. Like,
yeah, I was like, but I didn't. Yeah, I justified it. How I justified it was because I was like, they've got enough.
I can't tell you how many times in addiction that I was always like, I'll steal from a store, not from people, because the stores have insurance on their stuff.
Right.
Like, I was literally justifying, being a thief at that point that way. Like,
Right.
I've said this.
I didn't take it from them. I took it from.
I took it from the It's a corporation.
Now I did take it from Dope Boys a couple times. Because I was like, I'm getting my money back.
So I've said this 1,000 times. I'll continue to say it. When we're in addiction, we have to justify it.
Yeah.
To continue going down that path, we've got to justify it. I've got to make myself the good guy. Because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to continue it.
Right.
So, like with my own story, I'm a porn and sex addict. And I had an affair with my wife. During that time, I had to make my wife out to be the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to be the victim. And that was the only way that I could do it.
Yep.
Right.
That's the only way I could live with myself. That's the only way I could continue. I had to justify it. And it doesn't matter if you're the porn addict or if you're on meth or anywhere in between.
No.
You've got to justify
an addict.
Yes.
Just like a sin is a sin is a sin.
That's
The
right.
different part of her story, though, the different part of your story, Amy, is the fact that you didn't victimize yourself in the beginning, and you just got put in these circumstances, and life just kept giving you these choices to where you couldn't make the right choice because you were never taught how to.
Right.
And so therefore, once again, you're being victimized, by life itself. And then
Swallowed up.
yeah. And then so after all this, what choice do you have?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, life is giving you so many circumstances to say, okay, well, I've made it out of this. Boom, it makes you a victim to something else. Well, fine. I'll climb my way out of this one. Boom. You're going to be, it just kept going.
Over and over.
So it was just a pattern that just kept happening to you, not knowing how to really break a cycle because nobody's taught you life at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, so what was your rock bottom? What did that look like? What made you finally say enough is enough after 12 years of really digging into this? Because
12 years is a long time to be going down this path.
yeah, I mean, that's a big pattern to create, you know.
It's gonna
Of
get interesting.
Well, I mean, let me, the do hard, work hard, care about people. Now I got to get me, Something had to break the cycle. Something had to get to the point to where you were
The
like,
Lord did.
what?
The Lord did.
Amen. Amen.
The Lord did.
So what happened? What happened? I feel like there's something there. Wait,
There's a
Well-
breaking point.
the way she said the Lord did. I'm like,
Okay, so like I
there's
said,
something.
I ended up in, prison a couple times, jails a couple times.
Was this due to like possession charges?
One possession. Most of them were fleeing.
She's a runner.
She's a track star. She got on flip flops today, so I think we're good.
Figured if I had to work for it, they did too.
I love it. That's awesome.
Oh goodness!
So you were wound up in jail a couple times on that. So
So I imagine the cops felt like she was lost. Sorry. Pun
Was not
intended.
their favorite.
There she goes again.
Don't even try to stop.
My bad.
No, that's good.
Oh man.
That's good. Where was we at?
you were running.
Yeah.
Well, basically, we're talking about
Oh, the
just
Lord.
yeah. How did God finally get to a point to where He had to intervene? Because I mean, obviously, He was intervening throughout this entire time,
most definitely.
but to where you noticed that He was stepping in, and you said, "All right, let me turn my eyes this way."
Well, I'd end up in jail. All right. So this man that my mother, I told you my mother moved in with the money with
The boss.
Yeah, he had an y'all know Rick Mitchell.
Rick Mitchell.
He was a family and business attorney. He's now the judge, Madison County.
No, we're not from. We're from over in Meridian.
Well, I imagine he's related to Bilbo Mitchell, Manny Mitchell, the Mitchells of Meridian.
But
Well,
anyway,
Sorry.
He told me, he got me out the last deal. And he told me, he said, Amy, he said, if you ever get in trouble again, he said, you'll never see the light of day.
Mm.
He said, but mind you, this is somebody that's highly, respected and money, right? I believed him. Well, I got in trouble. And, but God.
Yeah.
But God. I didn't have a public defender or anything. I just have to tell you where this all began. The very, very, very first snippet of it. I sat there for 11 days and I went to court, Rankin County, Judge McDaniel, I believe. And the DA was down there running my name for everything I was. She's got 15 aliases. She's He was exaggerating. I've got a few, but he's exaggerating. But running my name for everything I was, and Judge McDaniel, out of nowhere, just raised his hand and went like that. Shut him up. He turned and looked at me and asked me to state my name for the courts. So I did. He asked me how old I was. I told him. He asked me how far I went to school, and I told him. And he asked me, have I ever gotten help before? And I said, yes, sir. He said, when and where? I told him, Whitfield. He said, how long did you stay? I said, 37 days. He said, what happened? I said, I guess it wasn't long enough.
So what sent you to Whitfield?
I don't know.
Because of all the
We
places,
went there for treatment. I don't know
yeah,
how
they do the
oh, they do.
yeah,
alcohol and
yeah
drugs.
they got the alcohol and drug treatment there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's
Okay.
not very long.
State hospitals have that.
Well, I know-
and East has it too.
I know East does. I worked
Yeah.
at theirs, but I didn't know Whitfield
Yeah.
did the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know how I ended up going there or anything like that. But Anyways, there was 37 days. He said, what happened? I was like, I guess it wasn't long enough. I don't know. I
Right.
didn't have another
Yeah.
answer, you know? And so he said, okay, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get you some help, or you can stay here and have 3 hots and a cot with us. Okay. And that little thingy,
The gavel.
yeah, down. That was it. And I was like, that's it? Well, how am I supposed to do that? You know? And I said, excuse me, Your Honor. You know? He's like, yes, ma'am. Would you like to state something for the courts? I said, yes, sir. And I know that this wasn't me
Right.
that spoke because I didn't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, what I need is a long-term Christian-based facility somewhere.
Huh.
Don't even know where they come from.
Yeah, because I mean, if we go back a little bit, if we rewind, I mean, she literally said she was never taught anything about God as a child. So I mean, out of nowhere, those words get spoken out of her mouth. Because I can only imagine none of these guys that you were with were going to church or trying to get you
No.
invested there.
No.
And I don't imagine there were many people that were trying to plug into your life at this point,
No.
just by the nature of how this story is going.
Ever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and so now you're facing this, grander Weiss charge to where they're telling you you're never going to see the light of day again. Of course, God is he's going to speak.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit is going to speak right to you at this point.
You know, and then sure enough, there was a guy over there that came and tried to bring me a card to Teen Challenge. And when he brought me the card, I was like, I can't. Ain't nothing I can do with this card.
I don't know what this means.
And right, and I so happened to have a boyfriend, nothing but
Right.
a boyfriend out in the thing. I was like, I hand it to him. And so whenever I went back there, of course, as soon as I got back there and could make a call, I made a call. What's going on? Who was that? Da da da. And he's like, he basically pinned me up outside. This is who he was. This is Teen Challenge. It's a this long program. There's the first man in my life that ever said, he's like, you have to go, be there for a year. You can't smoke. I can't see you or anything because we're not married or whatever. And I'll do whatever it takes. You first. You need. Hey, y'all. Y'all hear this?
What's wrong with him?
What's wrong with him? So, he gets everything, he's like, well, this is the first time I heard from the Lord. And, I had gotten I seen the girls, and mind you, I had not been around women.
Right.
Or anybody like that. I was confined in other people and women. Yep. And I have a 6th grade education. Okay? And I had not been around too much of the world, period. You understand this?
Right.
Okay. So I see these women here, and they've got these Bibles out, and I want to know, hey, where'd you get that? They tell me, and so I get one. And when I got it, I saw that there was a piece of paper like this, a little white piece of paper inside the Bible, recommended that you read out of 3 parts of the Bible a day. That is starting, it took me a minute to figure it out, but they recommended you read 3 parts a day, starting in the Gospel, a chapter of Psalms, a chapter of Proverbs, and a chapter in the Gospel, starting Matthew. So 1, 1, 1, right?
Yep.
Then 2, 2, 2. And then just start reading it. So I did. I had no clue as to what I was reading. I kept reading. And I didn't know what had taken place in my life or why I got where I got or how I got where I got because I knew I hadn't done anything.
Right.
Yeah.
But here I was, and I just cried out and I prayed to the Lord. And I was like, if you're there, I feel like I'm talking to the air, but if you're there, like I really need you to help me because I know that this is not
where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
This is not my life. This is not where I'm supposed to be. And, you mean I'll never get to hug my son or anything again, And I kept reading and everything. And then I went to bed one night. This is back in Rankin County Jail. They had those little windows, But back then they had TVs on the walls, and there one there, and I think they had two at the time, but I know for a fact one. And it had the time in the corner.
Right.
TV. Everything's very significant, by the way.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
So I had just read, and I put it at the head of my bed, did my daily reading, and I put it at the head of my bed, and I went to bed. I was going to sleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night to a voice. It said John 10. And I said,
That's the story of the man at the well, isn't it?
no,
That's John 9.
that's a good sheep, the good shepherd and the sheep.
That's right.
And I was like, I just was reading that,
Yeah.
And so I flipped and faced the wall. And when I flipped and faced the wall, I heard John 10. I heard it out loud, so I said out loud. I said, I'm not in John. I'm in Luke.
Hold up.
Hold up. I said, I'm not in John. I'm in Luke. And he said John 10.
Right.
Well, that third time, I knew I had to read it then.
Yeah.
And I remember looking over and looking at the time on the thing. It said 2:22 in the morning. So I was like, okay, I don't know where John is, but I'm gonna find it. And I found it, and when I got to John 10, I was like, oh Lord, that's a long chapter. It's 2:22 in the morning. I had to read it,
Yeah.
and I read it, and I didn't even know what a shepherd was.
Wow.
I don't remember school.
Right.
I was never taught anything. And I'm like, I read it. I understood some of it, but I didn't.
Right.
I figured if I could figure out what that shepherd was, what a shepherd was, I could figure out the rest of it.
Wow.
I remember.
Wow.
And so when we woke up that morning, we all came out. I'm sitting there holding my Bible. I'm looking at everybody. I'm like, hey, y'all experience my experience.
What's this shepherd?
What's it? Exactly. I was like, what is that? And I sat there for a minute. I was like, who do I go ask?
Right.
And if the person hears this, they'll know who they were. I went and asked. I went and squatted down beside him and I said, don't you laugh at me, but what is a shepherd? And they looked at me like, you don't know? They're younger than me.
Right.
Nope, sure don't.
How old were you at this time?
37.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And
I was wondering the time lapse, the time frame of all this happening from, being 16 to 19 to running, and then you got into this
it's wild.
this melee of trouble. So at 37, we're figuring out who the good shepherd is and what a shepherd is at that point.
I got a snippet. I still run, just a snippet. This is what a shepherd is. Okay. And I went on that. For me, it was like a duck chase,
Right.
Figuring I was anything I could get my hands on, anything I could get, I was searching. From there, that's where it began.
Well, and I hate to cut this short. Man, I hate to cut this short because I know there's plenty more to dive into, but we are running out of time, and I want to, before we even go another step further, I want to, for the listeners out there listening, what are you doing today to help keep you sober and staying on this path? What does your walk look like today?
Well, first of all, I'm not doing anything.
I love that answer.
I'm not doing anything.
That's right.
It's Christ and me that's doing everything.
Amen to that.
That's your answer for that one. But as far as the rest of it goes, is if you don't know, I have completely removed myself from social media. If the Lord wants something for you, He don't need that platform. He don't need that Facebook. Let me reword that. He uses everything, every single thing. But this distractions. When, being on Facebook, being on here, being on there, watching everything with everyone else, posts this with everybody else, then you're too busy to spend time with Him.
Right.
You know,
I agree.
spending time with Him is where it's at. It's not what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
It's not. Praise the Lord. He uses everything.
Yeah.
You know, but
Oh yeah.
but for me, right now, I'm listening to my shepherd.
So, are you working a recovery program anywhere?
No.
Okay. Awesome. And I love that because we have so many people in here that are in recovery programs, and we hear that so many times.
Yeah.
We don't hear that often of another avenue. And there's so many paths of recovery, so or sobriety. So I like that. So we're closing this out. I want to give you an opportunity as we wind this thing up. If there's somebody out there right now that's going through what you went through, take just a few seconds. What would be a few words that you would say to that person?
Well, first of all, I'd encourage you, and if I can't quote exactly where it's at, but the scriptures seek the Lord with all your heart. What was the first commandment? I'm sorry.
Love the Lord with all your heart.
Love the Lord with all your heart.
With all your soul, with all your mind, right? And love your neighbor as yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Search for Him as you would search for silver and for gold.
Ooh. I like it.
Because that is your saving grace.
I like it. I like it a lot. Well, we didn't get to touch much on our episode verse, but we'll put that in the show notes for everybody to check out and to look into your own time. And with that being said, that is all the time we got for today's show. Amy, thank you so much for coming by and sharing. No doubt in my mind that your story is going to touch somebody. Somebody's going to hear that story, and it's going to change them forever. Like somebody right now is going through what you've already came out of. Like I have no doubt, and they're going to hear that, and they're going to have a little bit of hope in their life. So
They might
thank
even
you.
ask the question, "What's wrong with y'all?"
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, most definitely.
Ask them.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
So thank y'all for tuning in to today's episode of Unashamed Recovery Podcast. I hope that you have found it helpful, and I hope that you have found it encouraging. And if you're listening and you're still in the darkness of addiction, I hope that today's episode has been a lighthouse guiding you out of that darkness and into the hope. And with that being said, stay sober and keep on 12-stepping as you stay unashamed.
Unashamed.
We love y'all.
See you guys.